Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Our mission is to take these massive industry-wide transformations and really distill them into the core intelligence you need. And today, we are tackling Pharma 4.0. This isn't just about faster production. It's the pharmaceutical industry's specific and very complex journey into a radical digital transformation.
It's a fascinating area because the stakes are just uniquely high. You're talking about integrating revolutionary, AI, machine learning, the Internet of Things into a sector that is defined by absolute regulatory stringency.
And the need for flawless quality.
Exactly. So we have to understand not just the technology, but also the immense regulatory and cultural shifts that are needed to make a single pill smarter and safer.
Right. So our goal today is to unpack that whole story. The history that led us here, the economic drivers forcing this change, the tech architecture, and maybe most critically, the new human element involved. To really get the 4.0 mindset, we have to recognize that production has already gone through three huge paradigm shifts. It's a journey that starts almost 250 years ago.
It truly is a continuous ascent. Industry 1.0 back in 1784 was all about basic mechanization using water and steam power.
Just getting away from doing everything by hand.
Right. It created the initial foundations of centralized factories.
And that gave way to Industry 2.0 around 1870, which was defined by electrification. This allowed for, well, scalable mass production. It gave us the assembly line,
Which brought consistency. And for early pharma, that was vital.
Then came the era I think most of us are familiar with, Industry 3.0, starting in the 70s. This was the computer age automation driven by electronics, IT, things like PLCs, programmable logic controllers.
And the goal there was all about enhanced precision. It was about reducing human error with these dedicated systems.
But the real difference between 3.0 and 4.0, it's about connectivity and intelligence. Industry 4.0 isn't just more automation. It's about the convergence of physical and digital systems, cyber-physical systems. The machines actually talk to each other. They learn and adjust in real time.
And for medicine, that is Pharma 4.0, which, leads us to the formal definition. The International Society of Pharmaceutical Engineering, or ISPE, they define Pharma 4.0 as applying those Industry 4.0 technologies, AI, IoT, big data, specifically for pharma manufacturing quality and supply chain.
I think the biggest insight here is the shift in why we're doing this. 1.0, 2.0, 3.0. They were all focused on efficiency, on cost reduction. Pharma 4.0 uses efficiency as a baseline, but its real emphasis is on creating value.
Value, yes, through radical quality enhancement, better patient outcomes, and agility.
So how do you actually achieve that?
Well, the ISPE sees it as a holistic model. It's not just buying new machines. They define it by 4 quadrants that all have to transform together. You have resources, the equipment, you have information systems, the data infrastructure, then organization of processes, which is how the company runs, and finally, culture.
The people.
The people. You just can't implement cutting-edge AI if your culture isn't ready to trust the data it produces.
That makes perfect sense. So if the technology is there, why the immense pressure to adopt it right now? What's forcing companies off their old, batch processes?
Number one is just economic reality. Drug development is unbelievably expensive, unbelievably slow. It often takes over a decade and costs billions. So companies face these huge cost pressures, both from R&D and from scrutiny over drug prices.
The old ways just aren't sustainable.
Not at all. And tied right to that is speed. We saw it during the COVID-19 pandemic, the capacity for accelerated development. Patients and public health, they now demand faster access to new therapies.
And finally, the regulators are actually stepping in to push the change.
Yes, this isn't just industry-led, it's regulatory supported. The FDA has emerging tech programs to help companies adopt these tools. And, critically, the revised EU GMP Annex 1, it basically mandates automated and robotic systems to cut down on manual operations and contamination risk.
So regulators are actively telling the industry, you have to digitize.
They are.
That's a huge insight. The regulatory push is now a driver, not a barrier. And the payoff is just, it's incredible. We're seeing projections that Pharma 4.0 can eliminate up to 80% of manual documentation tasks.
And think about what that does for compliance risk. It's a game changer. The savings go straight to the lab, too. We're seeing estimates of cutting chemical quality control costs by 25 to 45%.
Wow, and microbiology labs?
Down by 15 to 35%. These aren't minor tweaks. This is redefining the entire financial model of making medicine.
Okay, so shifting to the technical side. All these benefits are built on one foundation, data integrity. This brings us right to Quality 4.0, moving from reactive to proactive.
Exactly. Quality 4.0 moves us away from that old model of, periodic sampling.
Yeah.
waiting days for lab results, to a system of continuous real-time monitoring, advanced process control. But that only works if the data is absolutely reliable.
Which is why the ALCOA plus principles are so sacred.
They have to be.
ALCOA. For anyone who's not familiar, it's the cornerstone acronym. It ensures data is attributable, legible, contemporaneous, original, and accurate.
And what's fascinating is how digital systems challenge those rules more than paper ever did. For example, contemporaneous recording data at the time of the activity. With automated sensors, that means millisecond-level timestamps and secure, unalterable storage.
Or original data. Which digital copy is the trusted source?
Precisely why it expanded to LCOA plus ECO, adding things like complete, consistent, enduring, and available. It provides a verifiable audit trail for every single action across the entire product lifecycle.
That reliance on real-time data means total connectivity, which means integrating two worlds that traditionally did not get along, OT and IT.
Operational technology and information technology. Yes, this is the crux of 4.0. OT controls the physical stuff, valves, sensors, pumps. IT manages the business applications and the data. Pharma 4.0 absolutely relies on fusing these two, creating a seamless data flow from the shop floor right to the executive dashboard.
But wait a minute, hasn't the convergence of OT and IT always been a massive security risk? I mean, in every other industry, it creates this huge attack surface. How does pharma handle that?
That's a critical question. Security can't be an add-on. It has to be baked in from the start. Pharma 4.0 requires segmentation, a really robust network architecture. The goal is, if the IT network is compromised, the OT systems controlling production have to stay isolated and operational.
So it's a regulatory obligation.
It's a regulatory obligation linked directly to patient safety.
Okay, so that integrated data flow enables two really powerful concepts, the digital thread and the digital twin. I like to think of the digital thread as the product's permanent, verifiable life history file.
That's a great analogy. The digital thread is that continuous data stream that follows the product or even the equipment through its entire life cycle, from raw materials arriving to the product being dispensed. It allows for total traceability.
So if there's an issue with a batch,
you can isolate it down to the exact moment, the exact machine, even the environmental conditions when it happened.
And if the digital thread is the life history, the digital twin is the dynamic, operational simulation.
Exactly. It's a virtual representation of the whole manufacturing line. It lets manufacturers run complex what-if scenarios, test new parameters, simulate a failure, but without ever stopping production.
And that's why we're seeing this market just explode, a growth rate over 40%.
It completely mitigates risk before you commit to any physical changes.
So let's talk about the tangible automation, smart manufacturing, starting with a revolutionary shift in how medicine is actually made.
Yes, the move from batch processing, where you start, stop, test, adjust, to continuous manufacturing. This is an uninterrupted flow. Raw materials go in one end, finished products come out the other. Constantly. It dramatically reduces hold times, inventory, and even the facility footprint.
And continuous manufacturing is only possible because of something called process analytical technology, or PT.
PT is the critical enabler of Quality 4.0. It's a systematic approach using real-time sensor spectroscopy chromatography installed right on the line. They measure critical quality attributes during production. If something deviates even slightly, the control systems, fed by that PKP data, automatically adjust the parameters.
Which allows for real-time product release.
Exactly. No more waiting days for traditional lab tests.
So we've got this incredible tech suite, but in pharma, none of it matters if it doesn't meet the regulatory mandate. This whole digital framework has to be built on good manufacturing practice, or GMP.
It must. And digital transformation can actually improve GMP compliance by generating perfect audit trails and automated monitoring. But the systems themselves have to be validated. They have to comply with specific government frameworks.
In the U.S., the foundation for that is the FDA's 21 CFR Part 11. What does that demand from these electronic systems?
Part 11 is mandatory. It requires that electronic records and e-signatures be just as trustworthy as paper and ink. This means strict controls, validated software, audit trails that capture every single action, who, what, when, and secure unique electronic signatures.
It's all about reliability and accountability in the digital world.
Right. And in the EU, the equivalent is the EMA's Annex 11.
Similar guidelines.
Similar, but often broader. It really emphasizes risk management, data security, backups, making sure records are auditable for their entire retention period. And because the tech is evolving so fast, adherence to these rules is incredibly dynamic.
Which naturally brings us to Validation 4.0. Traditional validation was this conservative, paper-heavy process for static systems. That just doesn't work when you have continuous improvement in self-learning AI.
Validation 4.0 is the necessary update. It's dynamic, it's data-driven, it embraces lifecycle validation and risk-based approaches. Instead of a massive paper binder that's sealed forever, Validation 4.0 recognizes that validation has to be continuous, evolving right alongside the digital tools.
This sounds incredibly complicated, and it all relies on something much harder to change than technology: people. You mentioned the ISPE model earlier, and this is where the People Process Technology model, the PPT model, comes into sharp focus.
You can't just plug in a new system and expect success. The organizational transformation is the hardest part. The PTT model demands that all three dimensions transform together. If the tech is ready, but your processes are still paper-based, or your people aren't trained, the system will fail.
The culture shift must be enormous. You're asking operators who have used the same process for decades to suddenly trust data from a sensor and an AI model?
Absolutely. It requires change readiness, an innovation mindset, and most critically, a true quality culture. That means empowering employees to make data-driven decisions based on real-time insights, not just following a rigid hierarchy.
And that empowerment requires a major investment in the workforce. You need to build digital literacy. But you also need new roles: data scientists, machine learning engineers, digital manufacturing specialists.
The human skill set completely shifts. You go from manually operating equipment to managing and troubleshooting these complex interconnected systems. The operator becomes a system overseer, a data interpreter.
Which is the perfect transition to what's emerging next, Pharma 5.0. It acknowledges all the incredible gains of 4.0, but deliberately pulls the human back to the center of the operation.
Pharma 5.0 is built on three key pillars: sustainability, resilience, and human centricity. We're realizing that purely autonomous lights-out factories might be efficient, but they lack human judgment and creativity.
So the future role of humans isn't replacement, it's collaboration.
Exactly. We see operators collaborating with intelligent machines. Using cobots, collaborative robots, and AI assistants, the tech enhances unique human capabilities. Critical thinking, judgment, creativity. An AI might flag an anomaly, but it takes human ingenuity to devise a novel solution that leads to a breakthrough.
This deep dive has made it so clear. Pharma 4.0 is an imperative driven by economics, by speed, and by regulators. We've covered the history, the absolute necessity of data integrity through LCOA plus CUPS-Acts, the connectivity of the digital twin and thread, and the critical role of culture with the PPT model.
And we understand that the entire ecosystem, from the smallest sensor to the largest system, is bound by those non-negotiable compliance standards like 21 CFR Part 11 and Annex 11. They're the guardrails for all this innovation.
So if the future of pharma quality relies so heavily on predictive analytics, on machine learning, on these self-learning AI algorithms, here is the provocative thought we want to leave you with.
How do organizations maintain strict regulatory compliance when the core decision-making process is managed by a black box of complex AI? How do you ensure that every single step taken by that algorithm remains attributable and traceable to a verifiable, auditable regulatory standard? It demands an entirely new philosophy of validation that the industry is still right now grappling with.